What's going on, everyone? This is Nate the Great coming to you live from the Sports Corner. Actually, from the All Sports All Plays Network. This is Sports Corner, and I'm here today with Greg Soft Lips Galno. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. How you doing, Nate?
I'm doing well. Doing well myself. As we're going to be talking a lot of soccer, hockey, and basketball today as playoffs been going through. So to get things started, we have a couple of games that have been, let's just say they did not go as expected. I mean, Spain won, and I kind of had that feeling, but they beat Croatia 5-3. I did not think it was going to go that high score, and I did not think it was going to go into overtime, into extra minutes. So Spain had five different guys scoring during, especially in two of them. Two of those guys scored early within the extra minutes, while Croatia had a guy that the very first goal of the game was by Croatia with Pedri and Mislav Orzic and Mario Pezalak, who scored within the game. So I'm gonna give this to. Well, actually, to be honest with you, I think that this game, possession was key. Possession was key for this because Spain had possession of the ball 68% of the time, and I think that's really why they got the win over Croatia.
Yeah, I mean they had it was almost evenly matched when you look at shots on target.
Oh yeah.
I mean it was 10-7. So Spain had 10 shots on target. Croatia had 7. So Croatia, when they had the ball, like you were saying, when they had possession, they were making great use of it, but they just didn't have enough control over the ball today. I mean, Spain definitely manhandled the time. Like you said, 68%. That's a long time to possess the soccer ball, and but take nothing from Croatia. I mean, they definitely put the heat on. They just didn't
especially
get the ball
towards
back.
the ending. Like if they did not score one goal at the ending, we would be talking about a 3-1 ball game instead of a 5-3 ball game.
And Croatia just made a lot of errors. They had a lot of, yellow cards. They had offsides. Spain played a little bit cleaner game. They didn't have as many penalties and stuff like that going on. So Spain kind of tightened up a little bit on that, cleaned their game up a little bit. But I think that a lot of that came down with Croatia just not having very much time of possession, and they had to do some things trying to get the ball back. And I think that's what caused a lot of their issues with yellow cards and offsides and everything.
So I have a couple of insights some stats that I just learned not too long ago. Spain are on the first side in the European Championship history to score 5 or more goals in consecutive matches. So they're the first team period to do that.
Oh yeah.
This Spain team is crazy. Even though I don't think they're going to win the whole thing, I still think it's going to be Italy. Now Croatia has netted 7 goals in Euro 2020, which is their highest tally at edition of the European Championship.
Yeah, this Spain team is looking tough. I tell you, it's gonna be tough though when they come down and they have to play in Italy or Wales or some team like that is going to be tough. But yeah, Spain's looking like a definite front runner in this thing. But yeah, they just controlled the ball way too long today, and that's the main reason why they picked up this big win today.
And the third stat that I learned that this is actually the second highest game, with the exception of the 1960 semifinals, in all of European Championship history. The one exception was France versus Yugoslavia in 1960, where Yugoslavia won that match 5-4.
Yeah, I mean, this is some really exciting soccer this year. I don't think they were able to have a tournament last season, were they?
No, they did not. And I think the last. So this is, I think, really this year they called it Euro 2020 because it was postponed. Like this was supposed to be This tournament was supposed to happen last year.
Right. But I can't remember. Is this like a every other year or every 4-year tournament or what?
I think it's every year.
Okay.
I might be wrong on that, but I think it's every year. Now, actually, I think it might be every 4 years. Okay, so moving on to this next game, France lost in an upset match off of penalty kicks in their match against Switzerland. Switzerland will move on to the next round, and I think they will play Italy. If I'm not, yeah, no, they play Spain. They play Spain later today. I mean, Friday. Excuse me. So Harris Seferic has scored goals throughout most of the. I mean, scored the only 2 goals for Switzerland. Did not play for that last little portion of the game. I mean, do you agree with that, or do you think that he should have stayed in the whole time?
I don't know. I think that he probably should have been in the whole time. When you're talking the Euro 2020, this big of a tournament, sometimes you got to just keep your guys out there. But I don't know. I don't know. I've never really coached soccer. I played a little bit of soccer, but I really don't know exactly what I would have done. But I know that when you're playing in games this meaningful, moving on to the next round and stuff, sometimes you just got to let your star players just be out there.
Yeah. I would understand if it was something like France. Like France, had Karim Benzema, who scored 2 goals as well. And I understand, like, if it was halfway through and you're showing signs of fatigue or whatnot, I would understand if Karim Benzema was benched in this game towards that time because getting some rest. I would understand that. But Harris Seferic for Switzerland, because it's getting down toward he was ruled out closer towards the end of the game.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how I would have done it. When I look at this game, I'm kind of shocked that Switzerland, got it to a 3-3 tie and everything because France controlled the ball a little bit more than Switzerland. France actually got more shots on target and got like twice as many shots in this game. So they
There's a lot.
definitely,
There's a lot of things by the refs, and there's a lot of things by Switzerland's head coach that I do not agree with. And soccer is not a sport that that I know the most about, but I did not agree with the rest at all on some of the things being done, like some fouls being called and stuff like that. There's been times where I think it should have been called a foul, but was not. I was watching this game with a couple of friends, and yeah, there was just some things that I think should have been a call. It was, even though I loved that this game was an upset match, I do think that I didn't like some of the plays being made.
yeah. Well, I know that when you're talking about these high pressure tournaments and stuff, it's really frustrating when you got some questionable calls going on with the refs and they're kind of throwing out yellow cards and doing all this kind of stuff that you might not agree with, just like we've seen in the NBA when they've been making some really weird calls throughout these playoffs, and maybe all season long. It's just really frustrating because I think that this game sadly went down to a shootout. If you're a soccer fan, you love to see shootouts, but this game really shouldn't have had to go through a shootout. France, I think, played a little bit better game. Actually, quite a bit better game. They just, for some reason, things just weren't working right for them. But Switzerland's moving on. They had a little bit more luck on the penalty shots, but I don't really think that this game should have went into extras. Do you, Nate?
Towards the ending, I mean, yeah, I saw some of their goals, so I really wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. Well, actually, I take that back. I do think it should have been. I don't think it should have been in extras. I do agree with you on that. But there were, like, going back to the whole foul thing. There was one foul being called that I did not agree with, and I think it should have been 4-3, Switzerland on top.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think France should have won. France did have the lead for majority of the game, yes, but I think that this should have been over Switzerland 4-3 towards the end.
Yeah.
Moving on from away from Euro and going back to the Americas side. Into hockey, Tampa Bay Lightning had another blowout game. They won a 5-1 over the Montreal Canadiens, first game one of the Stanley Cup playoffs. So let's be honest. Tampa Bay has won this matchup. They put up the lead pretty early. If Montreal wins this series, they would have done one thing. They would have to do one thing that not one team has ever done before. And that's win back-to-back games against Tampa Bay.
Well,
I say done before, but done in the past 2 years.
yeah, I really, I love the Canadians. I love what they've done this year. They're kind of one of those surprise teams. I thought that the Maple Leafs were the strongest team in their division. I was high on the Maple Leafs, as you remember, but Montreal has came on. The Canadians have came on like gangbusters. Carey Price, probably hands down the best goalie. I mean, he kind of got ate alive tonight, but he's been the best goalie throughout these playoffs and throughout the last of the end of the season. But then, Tampa Bay's goalie too is outstanding, an outstanding MVP type caliber player too. So I think that tonight's game, Kucherov, was on fire. He helped lead them. A big thing that went against Tampa Bay this year, but it's going in their favor now, is Kucherov was out the entire season, rehabbing from serious injury. But he
Yeah.
had the whole season, and they gave him a little bit extra time, to get in shape, get rehab, get well. Usually in sports, you see a guy go down and their off season is done. Usually they get an injury within the season and they're out for the season. Kucherov's injury happened last year, shortly after the Stanley Cup, and he ended up having to have surgery, and they gave him the entire year off, and he just looks completely fresh. They're a brand new team with him. He was their leader. He was their spark plug, and he's still skating fast as ever. Tampa Bay is an extremely physical team, but they're also and they have excellent goaltending. I think it's going to be an incredibly hard task for Montreal to keep up with Tampa Bay. I don't know exactly what they need to do to try to get back into this series and win this thing. I know that Montreal's best player is Carey Price, and he's in the net. They have some decent guys on the ice, but as the team goes, as Carey Price goes, and if you can't protect them and you can't stop anybody defensively, and like tonight, 5 goals, that's just unheard of against Carey Price, because he's usually lately been only giving up 1 or 2, if anything. So Tampa Bay, I hate to say it, but it looks like they're on their way to a repeat. I mean, they just seem to be clicking a little bit better. Montreal looked excellent against the Knights, but they just didn't seem to have anything going on tonight.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but when my favorite team is out, and this goes for all sports, MLB, NBA, whatever. When my favorite team is eliminated from playoffs, I root for the team that is that has the least number of championship wins. Now, even though Tampa Bay Lightning won it last year and they won it in 2004, they only have 2 Stanley Cup finals and 2 Stanley Cup final wins. But you go to Montreal, even though their last Stanley Cup win was in 1992 to 93, they have 24. So even though Tampa Bay won it last year, I'm rooting for them. I'm rooting for them to win it all because I want them. Because Tampa Bay has way less than Montreal, 12 times less.
Well, I know that, but the storyline that I'm going with is it's been over 25 years since the Canadian hockey franchise, National Hockey League franchise, has held up the Stanley Cup. It's all been American-owned teams, American City teams for the last 25, 26 years or more. And it's nice to see a Canadian team in the championship. I know that Montreal has a storied history, especially in the golden era. They won all these championships. They were pretty much like the Yankees, championship. But, I'm rooting for the Canadians because, I think that the city of Montreal is hungry for something. I mean, they had baseball taken away from them. They need something going on. I'm rooting for the Canadians, but I just don't think that the Canadians. I think that they're up against it now, especially with Nikita Kucherov. He's fresh off of rehab. He's looking better than ever. He had 2 goals tonight. He's all over the place. It must be nice to get your star player back completely healthy and fresh for the playoffs.
Yeah. One thing that I am kind of disappointed about is that Braden Boynt, a guy that's been having that long streak, though, he did not score a goal today. He did have 3 assists, and he did get 3 points off of those assists, but he has not scored a goal in this game today. So we're talking about the same guy who scored several goals constant back to back. Uh, Lightning game against the New York Islanders in Game 7. Uh, he didn't score that one either. But so I did want him to have that record. Uh, to have that record, which I think that streak ended one shy of the current record.
Well,
10 games. So I think that streak ended at 9.
yeah, I know that we were talking about him having potential to break the record and everything, but it's a pretty good streak, especially come playoff hockey.
Oh yeah,
when you're talking about going against the best of the best. I mean, it's kind of one thing to score 9 goals or score 9 straight games when you're playing in the Canadian division against Ottawa and all those guys. But it's another thing to talk about if you're trying to score in championship level hockey.
yeah, yeah. So that's all I have to say on NHL side of things. The next game, the next game after today is Wednesday. Game 2, Tampa Bay is currently leading 1-0. Like being said, that it's game 2 of that series. So moving on to NBA. Now, the Clippers are currently in the lead of this game, but they are not, however, in the lead of the series. They're down 3-1 in the series, but they're currently up 114 to 100. Now, I think the Clippers really have a tough history of 3-1 comebacks. Do you think really that they're going to turn it around, even though they're in a different situation? Do you think they're going to turn it around this year?
I don't. I think they're definitely going to win this game with less than a minute to go. They're going to hold on. A big storyline of this game is that the Clippers have 58 points in the paint. Phoenix has 30. So Phoenix, their next game, they need to get their interior guys going a little bit more. I mean, that's just ridiculous to get outscored 2-1 in the paint. But the Clippers are playing solid defense. They're hitting a lot of shots today. They've got a high percentage going on. I don't think that the Clippers are going to turn it around and win this series. I think that this series may go 7 as they head back to Los Angeles. But I think that Phoenix is going to.
I don't think it's going to be 7.
You think
yes,
Phoenix is going to win it on the road?
I do think it's going to go 6. I think Clippers are going to win today, but they're not going to force into 7. I think
we've seen it too many times when a team gets down 3-1 and they're facing an elimination game. It seems like the team that is up 3-1 often gets a little bit lackadaisical, gets a little bit flat. The team with nothing to lose, like the Clippers tonight. They have their season to lose, but they're just coming out on fire. They're playing with a lot of intensity. They're playing shorthanded. They're doing everything they can. People are playing out of their minds right now, playing a lot better than they normally do. And some guys that aren't used to shooting at high percentages are on fire today. They can't miss. It doesn't matter what they're throwing up. So, Paul George tonight has 41 points. I don't think that we're going to see 41 from him, you know, for um, for the last two games of this series. So I think that it's just a matter of time before Phoenix puts this away. But I think it's good for Phoenix as well. I think that Phoenix is probably going to win this NBA championship this year, but they need to, um, I think that a loss every now and then is good for them because remember they went on that 10-0 win streak and they were the hottest team, and then they kind of got kicked back into reality a few days ago when the Clippers handed them their first loss in 11 games. So I think it's nice every now and then to just get kind of kicked back into reality and realize that you're not invincible.
Yeah. Clippers, just so you know, the Clippers finally did get that win, that game, their second win of the series, 116 and 102. The next game after this one is probably on Wednesday as well. Yes, it is on Wednesday. Tomorrow is the Milwaukee Bucks versus the Atlanta Hawks. With uh, with Trae Young hurt, possibly being hurt. Now, a little bit was covered today on Bring It. Do you think that Atlanta has a chance to win it with Trae Young out?
Absolutely not. Uh, with Trae Young out, I mean, basically, when we're talking about Trae Young, he's pretty much the heart and soul of his team. It was probably, when they made this trade, the Hawks and the Mavs, Luka Doncic for Trae Young, I thought, man, what are they doing? I mean, I thought that Luka Doncic was an all-world player. I thought that Trae Young was a very good player coming out of college, but it didn't seem like a very good trade at the time. But now looking back at this trade, it's got to be one of the um, most fairest trades, most equal trades that I've ever seen because what Trae Young brings to the Hawks and what Doncic brings to the Mavs, it cannot be questioned. So, but to answer your question, I don't think that the Hawks really have much of a chance without Trae Young. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's averaging over 25 points a night um, in these playoffs, and he gives them a lot of fire. He plays solid defense. He's good at setting people up. So he's good at handling the ball and everything. So that's kind of, you know, it's kind of, I don't really want to compare it to anything, but if you were to say, do you think that the Bulls could win? Not necessarily without Michael Jordan, but do you think that they could win without Scottie Pippen? Maybe Jordan could carry enough of the load for them to get a win without Scottie Pippen. But you're talking about a huge factor of their team. There's guys that there's stars in the NBA that you can win without, but I don't think the Atlanta Hawks have enough depth within their lineup to find anything to kind of solve the missing link that is Trae Young if he's out of this lineup.
Now, going back to Phoenix Suns and the Clippers, John Suggs has a very good point. The Clippers, the only way if the Clippers win is if Paul George scores a bunch. Look at the games where Paul George has stepped up. Yeah, he has a point. Paul George scored 41 points today, and they won. They won by like, yeah, they won by like 13. Yeah, so if he scored half of that, if he had scored half of that today, there was no way that the Clippers would have won.
Yeah, John's right. I mean, like we've been saying, is Paul George going to score 40 plus a night? For them to have a chance. I just don't see it. Paul George is an outstanding player, but that's just too much expectation to put on one guy to try to lift your team up. So I think that if the Suns make some adjustments and are able to keep Paul in between 20 to 25 range, it's going to be awfully hard for them to win because I don't really see much help out there. Reggie Jackson filled in nicely today, and he played pretty good today. But are we going to get that same Reggie Jackson in Game 6? It's just hard to tell. We're getting a lot of uneven performances throughout these playoffs from these guys. So I feel sorry for Paul George that he's having to carry such a hard load. I know that missing Kawhi Leonard at this point in the season has got to be an incredible loss. Because Kawhi Leonard is a very capable scorer, but he's also an excellent defensive player. So this might be, this series might be 3-2 in the Clippers' favor if Kawhi Leonard was healthy, but he's not, and here's where we're at.
And he says the same thing for the Atlanta Hawks. The only way that the Hawks can win without Young is if John Collins steps up. And averages 5 more points. And Capella keeps doing his thing on rebounds.
Yeah. I just think that, after the first game when Atlanta kind of took that game by surprise over the Bucks seem to be on a completely different level offensively and defensively. Middleton is playing phenomenal basketball. Giannis is playing all-world basketball. Their defense is stepping up. They haven't given up 100 points in the last few games. So I really don't see this series going that far. Do you, Nate?
No. But I did, however, call it. I did call it the other day that the Atlanta Hawks was going to win that first game because look at the Bucks when they faced the Nets. James Harden, even though James Harden was hurt, even though it was a different scenario, it was pretty much the same thing. And I say that because it took a game to realize how they should organize things, how they should beat the Nets. Now, I get it's through injuries why they managed to move on to the next round. But I had a feeling that this was going to be the same way.
Well, I think that Milwaukee kind of had a hangover after they beat the Nets, don't you? I think that after they beat the Nets and moved on to the Eastern Conference Finals, I think that they just celebrated a lot. They got in their heads a little bit, and that's what happens sometimes when you pick up a big win like that, a big series win. Sometimes the first game back come out a little flat. I think that's what happened tonight with Phoenix and the Clippers. The Clippers came out from the get-go and were the aggressors. Phoenix played aggressive at times, but they didn't get the ball down low. They didn't come out with a lot of fire, and they just came out flat. And a lot of their shots were flat, and they just didn't seem to have it, even though they were playing at home in front of the home fans. Phoenix just didn't have it. They just didn't have that Mamba mentality to put this thing away. I think that they will find it and be able to put this thing away. I don't know if it's going to be Game 6 or Game 7, but I plan on Phoenix moving on, and I think it's going to be Phoenix and the Bucks.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Phoenix and the Bucks as well. But so that's really all I had. Soccer, hockey, or basketball to talk about. Anything else that you wanted to bring up before we get us a close?
I don't have anything else to add other than my girlfriend wanted me to go buy soft lips for some reason instead of hot seat.
Okay.
So
this has been Nate the Great and Greg Soft Lips Galliano signing out. See you next week.